It was Monday, May 18th. I woke up, took a shower, got dressed, packed my lunch, and it felt like a normal day. I was very much at peace because the day before, it was my father's 20th anniversary of his death. And I went to a mass that was dedicated to him by my aunt, his sister. And we did what he would always do every Sunday, was go to church, and then we went out for breakfast. You know, my aunt had called me about a month before, and she shared with me that, she had reserved a mass, she dedicated a mass to him, and she was able to get the first mass on Sunday, which is the mass that he would serve in. He was a deacon of the Catholic Church. We're Catholic. And so she was very excited about that, and she mentioned to me she would love for me to join if I could. And of course I said yes. And at that moment we made plans to go to breakfast, and we did. It was her, my cousin, and myself, and we had the absolute best time. We cried, we laughed, we went down memory lane, and we lived in the moment and in his honor. And I felt him so close to me because my father was my person. He was my person. And when you lose someone that is so big in your life, that it leaves a void, and you never lose that. When people ask me, how do you do it? How are you feeling? And my message to them is, you'll never get rid of the pain or the void. You just learn to live with it. And there are years where they're really bad, and then there's years where they're great. And this year was a great one. And it was because we went to church and I felt his presence. We went to breakfast, and just talking about him for 2 to 3 hours, it made me relive so much of what I loved about him as a brother, as an uncle, as a father, and as a son. It just brought me really close to him. So that's how my day started the day before. And I was so peaceful and very calm the entire day. And I slept great. So I woke up with a lot of peace and a lot of calm. And I got in my car to drive to work, to drive my 1 hour to work. And I've been doing this now for a year. It's my devotional. I pray the rosary every morning. So whether I'm on my way to the office, if I'm working from home, I get up extra early, I pray the rosary. It's how I love to start my day. And it's something that gives me a lot of peace in my life. And so I do that. So I got in my car, I prayed the rosary. And on this particular day, normally after I pray my rosary, I'll catch up on a couple of YouTube videos because I am in the car for an hour. And I'll catch up on a few videos. But this day in particular, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep that calm and that peacefulness that I was feeling. So I decided to listen to very soft, inspirational Christian music. I was praying and singing in the car all the way to work. And I had this overwhelming peace it carried through from the day before. Walked in the building and put my stuff down, got my desk organized. And about 10 minutes later, after I got there, my coworker walked in. She and I chit-chatted a little bit. And she asked me, how was my weekend? I shared with her how my weekend was. And I said, but what's interesting is I was feeling fine up until I walked into this building onto this floor. And I feel like something's going to happen today. And she giggled a little bit because our company went through a massive layoff in October. We lost 9,000 people, were displaced. And she said, I've been feeling like this since October. And I said, I know, but today for me, it feels very heavy. And she goes, yeah, I don't know what it could be. So, we were chit-chatting, and I said, listen, I need to put my lunch in the refrigerator, and I need to go downstairs and grab something just in case something does happen. At least I can take it on a full stomach. And as we're sharing this and we're laughing, we look and our VP walks in. And what made that strange is that our VP normally doesn't walk in until about 9:30, 10 o'clock. It's 7:30 in the morning, and he's there. So we both looked at each other. We waved to him. We said hi, but we both looked at each other and went, okay, that's odd. 5 minutes later, the HR business partner walks in right behind him and goes in his office. And that's when it was confirmed to the both of us. I said, see, I told you. Didn't I tell you something was going to happen today? And, we laughed a little bit because we have no control over things. I couldn't control what was going to happen, whatever it was. And so I went and put my bag in the refrigerator, went downstairs, and as I'm ordering my food, I get a buzzing, my phone vibrates, my work phone, and I look at it, and it's a one-on-one with the VP that I just saw for 9 o'clock in the morning for 15 minutes, just him and I. And the subject is organization update. I knew right then and there. I decided not to complete my breakfast because I was trying to run back to see if my coworker received the same email. So I'm running up the stairs. I can't find her anywhere. I decided to call the other two people on my team. One of them works remote in a different state, and the other one, she normally arrives around 8:30 or so, 8:39, a quarter to 9. So I wanted to catch her before she arrived, and I called her immediately, and I asked her to check her calendar to see if she received an email invite from our VP, and she did. And hers was for 9:40. I said, "Is this the subject?" She said, "Yes." We called our other coworker who's out of state. He also confirmed that he received it. So mine was at 9, his was at 9:15, and my other coworker was his was at 9:20. My other coworker was at 9:40. They were all for 15-minute increments. And I said, "Guys, today's the day that we lose our jobs." Yes, it's not a if, it's today is the day that we are losing our jobs. And yes, this is the same company that laid me off in 2018. Yes. So now I've been laid off twice by the same company, but I'll get to that in a minute. So 9 o'clock comes around, or it's 8:58. In the meantime, I have touched base with my coworker that I was talking to in the morning. She didn't receive an invite at all. And so I said, you know what, let me just pack my bag. Let me grab my lunch out of the refrigerator, because this is it. So I logged off of my laptop. I shut it down. I left my keyboard and my mouse. It was all available there. And she was like, "Why are you doing that? I don't think you have to do that." I said, "I know that I have to do this. This is happening." And she tried to talk me out of it because she herself was in denial. I said, "Listen, you're okay." But then you have that, that guilt of someone else being affected, and you've seemed to be saved now a second time, right? Or a third time if you count the layoffs from October. So she has that guilt. And I said, "You know what? Don't feel guilty. Think of it as a blessing for you. I'll be okay. I will be okay." And so I walked into the conference room 2 minutes early, because what's the point, right? May as well rip the Band-Aid off. I walk in the room, but what alarmed me was that there was the VP, and with him was the Director of Employee Relations. Why is that strange? Well, because normally it's the hiring manager and the HR business partner. And it wasn't. It was the VP and the Director of Employee Relations. They brought in the big guns for this. And what I thought immediately when I saw that was, you have 3 minorities that are getting laid off. What were they expecting? Were they expecting drama? Were they expecting retaliation? Why have the Director of Employee Relations here? Is what my thought process was. So I walk in, I sit down, and the VP, whom, by the way, I escorted on his first day for his interview. I escorted on his first day when he was hired. We have history, 23 and a half years ago. He was also the person that I reached out to when I got laid off and I wanted to go back to the company. And I asked him about this opening, and he said, "Yes, Lisette, it's on my team. I'll push your resume along." And he was able to make it happen for me to get hired. So we have great history. This man is sitting next to me, as robotic. His eyes were sunken in. You can tell he had not slept. He doesn't want to go off script. He's holding this paper with white knuckles, and he's reading it as if you're a robot, as if we don't have history. But he reads the email. He finally picks his head up to look at me. He tries to have this somber, sad face. It's not working. It's not working. And I ask him, what are the changes? And he's not able to share with me what the changes are. They're saying there's a restructuring, and unfortunately, my position has been eliminated. And because of that, I am eligible for a package. And he says, I'll have this person, the director of employee relations, go over with you what those specifics are, but I'm not at liberty to discuss what the changes are because we haven't shared them with the broader department. And then he says, I'm going to hand this over to the director of ER for him to explain further. And so I'm looking at this director of ER, and I had never met him a day in my life. And he's looking at me, smiling, right? Shares with me what my package is, smiling the entire time. And I'm thinking, is it me or is this person just a little off? Has this person never been coached on how to behave and to fix his facial expressions in a matter like this? So he's smiling the whole time, sharing with me what my severance package is. And then he asks me with the biggest smile of all, oh, Lisette, where are you parked today? Where exactly are you parked? And I'm looking at him like, first of all, I've been through this. Everything you're telling me is something I've already heard before, but I'm in a much clearer mind this time around. I'm more, I have my bearings with me. I'm more confident. I am not emotional. I needed to make sure that I was not emotional through all of this. My husband, when I called him to tell him of the meeting invite that I got, he knows how to speak life into me. And he said, Lisette, he didn't say Lisette, he calls me babe. He said, babe, we got this. You're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. Just get your stuff and get out of there and come home. It's all going to be okay. Don't get emotional. It's fine. I said, okay, you're right. It is fine. It is. And so, when I looked at this director of ER and I looked at him and I said, and he looks at me, he goes, what's the matter? I said, I'm trying to figure that out because I'm having a hard time listening to you while you're smiling. Do you realize that I'm losing my job today and you're smiling? I think that requires a little bit of coaching so that your facial expression matches what's actually happening in the room. I don't know how to feel about this. And he says, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I was doing it. Oh, well, you are, and you have been the entire time. I said, you've been smiling the entire time. As if I'm getting a promotion, but I'm not. I'm losing my job. So I was really annoyed. I was very visibly annoyed by that. And then I looked at the VP and I said, I have a couple of questions. And one of them is really directed for you. And I said, I brought you on. I escorted you, right? I went through everything I just said to you. And I said, and when I decided to come back, you were very pivotal in helping me come back to the company. Even while I was out and you were at this other company, you helped me, you gave me referrals, you were nice enough to do that. And I just want to ask you, and I did this because I wanted to check his emotional barometer. Because, corporations need to get away from being so robotic in moments like this and know that the person across from you is a human being. You are completely turning their life upside down. You are disrupting their lives. And you're reading a script. You're reading a damn script. So my question to him was, and again, this was to check his emotional barometer. My question to him was, based on what I just shared with you, if I could use you as a reference. His bottom lip dropped. He had no idea what to say to me. He had no idea what to respond. My immediate reaction was, listen, if you're uncomfortable with it, if it's not something you want to do, I'm okay with that too. I'm okay with it. I just wanted to ask. And he said, it took him a few seconds to get himself together. And he said, no, he goes, oh my God, I wasn't expecting that question. I'm not prepared for that question. I said, I bet you're not. It's not written on that little piece of paper there. Again, I was being very petty because I could. This time around, I could. The first time around, they got me. They got me good. And it wasn't this particular group of people. It was a whole different set of people, whom, by the way, are no longer even with the company. But it was a different conversation, a different set of people. But I had my bearings with me and I was not emotional because I refused after what I went through that first time. And I'll link that video for you below. What I went through that first time, I promised myself that I would never give any person, place, or thing that much authority or that much control over my life. It was never, ever, ever going to happen again. And I sat so confident and so sure of myself in that chair. So much so that I have not shed a tear. This was over a month ago and I have not shed a tear. And you're probably wondering, why haven't you talked about this before? Well, because I couldn't. Because I had this thing called severance that I needed to fulfill. And I wanted to make sure that the money was deposited into my account before I could speak about it. But it's important for me to talk and be a testimony of this isn't the end of me, right? What the decision that they made, it's on their conscience, not mine, right? And so when I asked the VP to check his emotional barometer on this, and the way he answered me was, yes, of course, yes, I would love to. It would be my pleasure to do so. I knew that that was BS because he shouldn't have been so shocked if he knew and remembered who he was talking to, right? And so the fact that it required him to take a few seconds to get himself together to just say, I wasn't prepared for that answer. I didn't know that that was an answer you needed to be prepared for because, again, we have history. So I immediately knew, okay, I know how to take this. Even though he said yes, I know it's a no, right? Please don't kind of thing. And so we continued with the whole script. And then he says to me, he goes, well, because we finished a little bit early, the executive assistant is going to bring your belongings over. I think they're bringing your belongings over. I said, absolutely not. I said, that is not necessary. Can we not do that? Because my last day was effective that day. So I had my phone, I had already powered it down. I handed my phone over to the VP and I handed my badge over to the director of ER. And I said, can we not do that? My bags are packed. I just need to go grab them and I can leave. Can we not make this any worse? It's already bad. Can we just treat each other as humans here for a second? Just let me grab my bags. And he wouldn't answer me. He just looked at the other guy and the other guy, sure, yeah, absolutely. I can walk you over. So he walks me over and the coworker that I had been talking to that morning, she was standing at her desk and completely white and not knowing what to do, where to look. And I grab my bags and as I'm leaving, I wave to her, I yell her name and I wave to her, I go, bye. And I walked out. I have not shed a tear. I have not shed a tear. I have not lost sleep. I slept so great that week because, listen, what God has for you will not pass you. I believe that with my entire soul. The first time this happened to me, I hit probably the worst rock bottom of the version of me that I could have ever reached. I was depressed. I became a severe alcoholic. I was not taking care of myself. I was abusing my body, in my food, in my habits, all of it. I was a train wreck. Not this time. Because God knew what I was feeling. You know, this company that I believed so much in, and I wholeheartedly wanted to remain there until I retired. You know, all I need is about 3 more years, right? If they could just give me 4 more years is how I thought. And I really saw myself retiring there. But somewhere in the last year and a half, I've lost my enthusiasm for the company. I saw how things were being managed. I saw how things were being moved. I saw how people were acting. And it just wasn't settling good for me. It wasn't settling right for me. I have a moral compass. And it was working against every fiber of my moral compass. And I felt very strongly about that. And I was praying on it. I was praying and praying and praying, you know, and then I got 2 promotions in between, right? I thought, okay, God's hearing my prayers, right? He's hearing me. And I was very grateful and blessed and honored to have those promotions. And at the time I had a great manager, because when I got laid off the first time and I had hit rock bottom, as I was coming out of my depression and I was really becoming this more vibrant, energetic, positive version of me, I promised myself to pray with intention. And the intentional prayer was, I want to work somewhere where I am respected, where I am trusted, where we are treated as humans and as equals. I don't want to be in a toxic environment. I don't want to have a team that is toxic. I want a team that we build each other, we motivate each other, we inspire each other, we got each other's back, no matter what. I prayed with such intention. And when this job was presented to me in the way that it was and how quickly it came to be, I knew that that was God. I knew that was God behind all of that. And it was great. It was great. The first 3.5 years, it was a dream. I felt like I felt like a unicorn. You know, our director was amazing. You know, I prayed for a director like her. And God gave me that. And I cherished and I was grateful and blessed every single day. I counted my blessings every single day. You guys have heard me talk about it on my YouTube, on my vlogs and my travel vlogs, right? I got to travel, I got to network, I got to get out of my cocoon and really just blossom. And I loved every second of it. I learned a lot. You know, this job granted me skills that I can carry into the next role. I've made network connections up the chain that will carry me into next roles in years to come. And I have treated people with respect and dignity. You know, the job that I had was not easy, but I treated people and I met them where they were and I treated them with respect. So when I came home and I updated my LinkedIn to open to work, the floodgates were opened because my phone was ringing off the hook. I was getting so many emails. I was getting text messages. I was getting phone calls. It was insane. And, you know, people would call me in total shock and they were, oh my God, Lisette, I'm so sorry. My response was then and still is, when they ask me, how am I doing? My answer will always be, I am doing great. I am at peace and I am relieved. Because the fact of the matter is the company is not the same. The people are not the same. You know, they hired this one individual earlier in 2025. And when he came on board, you know, he's the type that always wants to speak and wants to hear himself talk all the time. And I had kind of gotten that from him within the first month of meeting him. And then it just got progressively worse. So he started around February of 2025. Now, mind you, we're going through a major layoff in the company. It was announced in August. We're at a POA, and it had just been announced the week before, where people, even in our company at certain levels, were already being told of their job positions and the eliminations. It was a very difficult POA. And then we get a meeting invite from our VP at the time, who says that, you know, we have to have this meeting. We're thinking we're at the POA. Okay, we'll leave the rooms and we'll have this meeting. And he shares with us that they hired a new senior director because the director that I had, that I prayed for, you know, she got a promotion. And so we weren't reporting to her as of March of 2025. And in the interim, we were reporting to the VP because it's a very lean organization. So we were reporting to the VP. And he was not a micromanager. He was very much so, you know, you guys are a well-oiled machine. Keep me posted. Keep me updated if you need me for anything. Just continue to do what you guys have been doing. So sure, great. That's what we were doing. When we had that meeting in August, it was like the third week of August. And he shared with us that on that Monday, the new director was starting. Our new director, the person that we were reporting to. We had heard crickets on this for months. Nothing was ever talked about. Nothing was ever addressed. No, you know, let me give you an update. Nothing. We went from our director moving out of the position and getting promoted, not having anyone, to, oh, we need to have a meeting. Your new director starting on X day. So that was a big change in the organization. The team is very small. It's too small not to have communication, right? And based on what we did in the organization, communication is key. Documentation and communication is the essence of what that department consisted of. So we were reporting to the VP. We have a new director. Now let's talk about optics. Okay. There are 9,000 people that are losing their jobs. They're being told that in 32 days, 9,000 people, we are being told that in 32 days, 9,000 people overnight will lose their jobs. In the midst of that, you hire a director in the process. Like, the timing of that could not have been worse. But don't forget, we serve an intentional God, right? God is intentional. And so they hire her. She's very aloof. We try to give her the benefit of the doubt. She never has a meeting with us. October rolls around, 9,000 people lose their jobs. We lose 3 people in our own department. It was very stressful. The morale was 0, if not negative. Everyone is scared. People need information. People have questions. As a good leader, you should just send an email to do a pulse check on your team. And again, she couldn't give out any information, right? But optics matter. If nothing else, just to check in, say, listen, I know it's been tough, but that would be an example of a good leader. Crickets. After the layoffs, we don't hear from her. She has a business trip in November. On that business trip, now she's been there, in December, the first week of December, she has a business trip. She started in September. We know that she's had meetings with other departments and other people, but she has not met with her team, with our team, with the 3 of us. December, she goes on a business trip, and our chat messages and Teams are blowing up because she is on her laptop, on the airplane, connected to wireless, and is now shooting off all these messages. But meanwhile, when our feet are on the ground and we're literally 30 steps away from your office, you can't ask us a single question. We would have one-on-one scheduled that hardly ever took place. And the ones that did take place, nothing was resonating. Like, she was not computing what we were telling her. She was getting information from everyone else in the organization except for us. Anyhow, so there's December, but her and the other gentleman that was hired in February, they are thick as thieves. They are having lunch together. They're constantly meeting with each other. She's going to him as the resource. She has to pass us to get to him and doesn't even say good morning. No good morning, nothing. We thought, And I told my team back in December, I said, listen, I think we should start fixing our resumes. I think that we need to really hone in on our skills and realign ourselves because something isn't right. Something just isn't right. And so we completed our goals in January. It was May. She still had not met with us. I had scheduled 2 meetings with her from January to April to go over my goals. And she canceled both of them with no reason. None at all. Canceled both of them, did not review our goals with us. We're approaching the middle of the year and you hadn't even met with us on the first quarter goals. Okay. So May 18th was not a huge surprise. May 18th was not a shock to my system. May 18th was the day that I could breathe again. May 18th was the day that I could sleep peacefully. And I had full trust that God was all over this. That it was because of him that he removed her and the others from my path. You know, I had been feeling uneasy for a while, even before the layoffs. Just, again, like I mentioned earlier, seeing how the company was moving and all the messaging, it was just really bothering me. It was going against my moral compass. And so when this happened, I felt relieved. And I know that God has bigger and better plans for me. He had to remove that from me again. But I'm okay with that. He had to remove that from me again in order for me to really hone in on my full potential. and take my skills to another level, right? To meet new people, start fresh, start in a new place. And that makes me excited. That brings me so much joy. And I don't have any nervousness around it. I know that my next journey is going to be so much bigger and so much better. And I am excited about it. I cannot wait. You know, losing your job in this market, yes, it's competitive. Yes, it's scary. But you know what? When you go into it feeling blessed, thankful, grateful, because I've had an amazing journey these last 5 years in this department. It's been wonderful. And I can take all those things that I've learned and all those connections that I've made to build onto the next one. It's also given me an opportunity to get more creative, right? To dive deeper into YouTube, to learn other skills, get certifications. It's given me a full blank slate to be able to do that. You know, this week I was already stressing because my daughter and my son-in-law, they're taking their honeymoon. They got married last year and they postponed their honeymoon for this year. And I was already worried about Sasha and where was she going to stay and if I had to go into the office every day, right? All of that was really working on me. And here I am having a full schedule, being able to enjoy her fully and take care of her and give my daughter and my son-in-law the peace of mind that she is safe and that she's okay and they can enjoy themselves. You know, these are all little blessings that I don't take for granted. And I'm excited for what's to come. I have had 2 interviews at a new company and, you know, I am praying with intention. So I'm here to share with you that in the midst of fear, in the midst of uncertainty, in the midst of the unknown, you have to trust. You have to trust that what is for you will not pass you. It will not. I am living proof of it. And I can't wait to come back here and to share with you where I've landed, where I've started, and what's to come. You know, I couldn't share more because number one, I am respectful of my family and just, you know, I'm a relatively private person. And so I won't share the name of the company or, you know, the people, but, you know, if God has it in his plans for me to go back, I am a good steward. I am a good servant and I will follow that blessing. But that is not my prayer. You know, my prayer is to put me in a place that builds my skills, builds my knowledge, creates more network opportunities for me. You know, I'm tapping into things that I love to do that I didn't know that I love to do. And that's what this recent role has given me. It's broadened the way that I think, the way that I feel, the way that I see myself, my confidence, you know, my skill set, all of it has been magnified by this role. And I couldn't be more thankful for it. So while I could sit here and be angry because this happened to me for a second time, I could be, you know, just mourning and grieving the loss of a job. No, I am too blessed. I am too blessed. I have abundance. I have things that are happening. I'm getting brand deals. I am getting reached out by so many people and leaning into those opportunities that otherwise I would have had to put to the side because of my 9 to 5 at the time. So everything happens for a reason. And, you know, you believe in who you want to believe in. I believe in God, and I know that he has been blessing me and is holding me up every single day. So that is my message to you today. I want to be a sense of inspiration and a testament of what can happen and the positivity and the journey and the joy of the journey to get there. I will share more once I have an update. But until then, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And until the next one, adios.